Hello, it's Maggie, the Cheshire Crafter here. I've mentioned in a few of my videos that I'm in the middle of making a Forever Autumn patchwork quilt, and I want to create a ombre effect, and I'm going to talk to you in this video about some of the considerations for doing that. I've taken my inspiration. If you take a look at my videos, I've recently been to Southport, and I had the good fortune to be able to walk along the Lord Street promenade and also on the train, and if you can see the blue sky against the lighter colours at the top, the berries on the trees, the changing colours, the silver birch that were peeping through the tree, the various sycamore trees, elder, oak, and then the falling leaves that we've got now. We're now into November. I wanted to create that ombre effect from top to bottom. So I'm going to talk to you about consideration factors for doing that in quilting. The Forever Autumn quilt, and I've started it. I'm going to put my pattern onto graph paper and I'll photograph that, so I'll show you how I'm doing that. It's going to be a string, they call it string pattern quilt, and mostly I've sourced my fabrics from recycled fabrics, mostly from men's shirts, some ladies' cotton skirts cut on the bias, not biased, cut on the bias. And I want to show you some of the considerations I've got for creating an ombre effect through the quilt. Now the quilt's going to be a row of 6 blocks across the top and 8 blocks down. 6 by 8 is that 48? So it's 48 blocks. And if you see some of my videos, you see that when I went to Southport recently, I was very inspired by the colours of autumn. And I wanted to recreate some of that and give the impression of a natural autumn scene and autumn falling leaves. How am I going to do that in quilt effect? Well, what I'm going to do is create what would look like a piece of art in abstract. I'm doing it with a string effect with a white cotton across the diagonal, and they're going to create white contrasts to my colours, and they will create a pattern going through the quilt. And I'm going to try and emulate the lighter colours, the lighter weight of twigs, trees and sky, and the lighter colour of leaves at the top, going through to the heavier dropped leaves, rotting leaves on the ground in autumn, and the much darker, heavier weight colours. And what I've done that, I've already done the top 2 rows of my quilt blocks. And what I've done is I've incorporated lighter colours mingled with a few designs. What I'm going to do next, I've done the top 2 rows, I'm going to do the bottom 2 rows, and then I'm going to mingle in between. However, in the top 2 rows, what I've done in my block is I've added the equivalent of a lighter weight twig. I've added greens, I've used beige, I've used collar and cuff and the yoke of a man's shirt for this floral fabric. And in different ones, you will see that I've incorporated, let me find one for you. You'll see I've used polka dots on the corners, I've used stripe in there, and I've used this blue to emulate sky. And I've used beige. Now, every now and again, I've interjected some of the darker, so it doesn't come as a sudden shock, where we suddenly get mustards, rust colours, and then if we look at the block at the back that I can see, I've actually put some of the darker maroon in there. next to, it looks rust, it looks two-tone on there, it shouldn't be. It's actually a dark maroon. You can see through that, can't you? That's my fingers that you can see through that. That is a dark maroon, it's just a thin piece of fabric. So I don't want a sudden change, I want a gradual change. And what I've done as I go into my third row is I've already ironed and kept on a pin the colours that I still want to use up. I haven't got much of this floral colour left. I do want to use some of this lovely rust colour and the polka dot and some of the green stripe, if I've got any left. And yeah, I've got a little bit of it here. I've also got a little bit of this ombre. It's got a little bit of pink going into rust colour from a shirt. And as I go down the quilt, I want the beige to disappear. I want the sky to appear very rarely. You can sometimes see trees through the lower parts of, the sky through lower parts of trees. But what I don't want in there is the beige. And what I don't want at the bottom is all the colours to be solid. And I'm going to show you the colours that I've selected for my bottom layers. And I'll show you where I thought the problem might be and how I'm going to deal with that. So let me show you. These lighter weights will start disappearing around about row 3. They might appear very sparsely on row 4 or row 5, and by the time I get to row 8 I'm looking at rich, solid, deep. This is a dark olive, green, rust reds, browns, and I've only got one stripe in there. And when I looked at it I thought, now that's going to look odd if I've only got one stripe. I haven't got another stripe, but what I realised that what I was going to need to do was break up this solidness, if you like. Now I might do that with the border. I'm going to show you the border. I've chosen this fabric, so it's very evidently falling leaves, and all my colours do go really well with that. But I don't want just solids. So what I've done is I've looked into my stash and I thought, how am I going to break this up a little bit? This is okay for maybe row 7 and certainly row 8. Row 7, okay, I might put a bit more of a stripe in there. But by row 6 and row 4, I'm going to try and merge the two. And I don't want a sudden disparity between these at the top and these at the bottom. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm looking at what have I got in my stash, and I found this. This is a Laura Ashley vintage print. But look at the nice red. Now that'll link the white in from the stripe that I've got going through. And just doesn't that add a bit of vibrancy to those colours? Just that little bit of movement going through. It is floral. It is a bit abstract. And if I've got it on the diagonal of a stripe, it will look like something's falling. So that to me was a yes. I'll start adding that in around about row 3 or 4 maybe. And I haven't got a lot of that because that's vintage Laura Ashley and that's quite precious. But what I did do was I looked at what have I got in my stash of fat quarters. And I picked out these colours. Now, these colours look fine with these, I think. They look fine with these, but they don't all look fine when I place it with the border. So let me show you what I mean with that. That looks fine. This is a red batik. It varies between the rust. It actually connects the rust and that deep maroon together very nicely. It will go quite well with that brighter red. So I thought that was a yes. This green, I felt, oh gosh, I might have needed some of that right at the top of the quilt. It actually looks a little bit too spring-like. And I felt that that was too bright for what I wanted in comparison. So as I go down the quilt, I certainly don't want to get brighter. So that went into the no pile. My next one, I thought, oh yeah, I quite like that. Not only is it trees, it's foliage on it, It's got browns in it. It's got browns and greens and a little bit of a bluish hint to it. And I thought, yes, that goes really well with that olive green, with the mustards, with the brown. That will link it together. So that is a yes. Then I looked at, oh, look, I've got this one that's already got leaves on. And I'm going to come back to that one in a minute because I liked that colour-wise. But I preferred this one. Now, this one has got leaves on it. And if you can see, they are falling leaves. And it's just got a tiny little bit of gold. And that would make that golden brown. And there's a reason why I want to link golden brown and forever autumn with these quilts. So I feel I want to use this one. Now, when I put them together and test these colours then with the border, the red one goes. I'm quite happy with that because it picks out this hint of pinky going red. So that's still a yes. The green one, this is a very strange green. It's like a tealy blue green. Well, if you look closely enough at this, it starts to go a bit greeny blue. And I thought I could get away with that one. So that's a yes. This one, although it's vibrant, it's got the leaves in, I felt that was a contrast. That goes with them very nicely. That's a yes. But the one that was the no, ooh, gosh, no, what a clash that is. And the other thing is, I haven't yet got a leaf design. I've got stripes, spots, polka dots, batik, a bit of abstract foliage, and a little bit of batik with a bit of falling leaf. So I felt that to introduce something that's so obvious as a leaf was a little bit too much. And certainly a clash with this. So I'm going to put that one aside. So I didn't select those two. So rather than going suddenly from the top rows like this to the heavier rows at the bottom, I've now got something that's going to break up and add a little bit of movement and interest in there. And what a difference that's going to make. Otherwise, it felt just a little bit dull with no movement at all. I know I want to imply the leaves have died, but just look how different that looks now. Just looking at a batik or a pattern to interject into that, and how much better that looks as a range to it just all plains with no patterns, or just with the one stripe. That looked out of balance to me. So I think my row 8, to balance it and still make it look heavy, will have some of the red fabric included in it. And then as I go up to row 7, I'll include a little bit of that and certainly start introducing some of these. And then in the middle, I'll have a gentle easing off of the lighter greens and the beige, and more of an introduction of the darker colours. I've got plenty of them. I've already cut them. They're already on pins in pieces for me. And if I've got more left over, that's okay. I can use those on another project, can't I? What I don't really want to introduce down here is this bright lime green. So that's got to be put out of the way. So let me show you what that looks like when I've done row 8.